Hey everyone, so here we are in the M2 CS, and today in this video I am going to do my first impressions. We've got about 180 couple miles on the car, and I'm going to walk through. I'm going to go through a lot of stuff, so there's going to be a lot of content here that I'm going to run through relatively quickly as I go on a drive and talk about the car. So if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's go ahead and get started. Hey, I'm Andy, professional performance car driver with a passion for well-engineered cars and driving with friends on mountain roads. On this channel, I share with you my driving experiences and bring you videos on new gear and car reviews. While this isn't a driving impression component of the video, there is something I do want to point out here that does affect the difference between, say, the RS and the M2 CS. So one is you can look across the top of the car here and you can see the roof there, and the roof obviously is much lower on the RS. But one of the things I really want to show you is I was having some awkwardness getting in and out of the M2 CS. The bolsters are really quite large. So here, you look at the bolsters here and how far it comes out and then how far back they set in. So when you get inside the car, right, go in feet first, get your foot inside there, get the butt in, pivot around. But the distance between where the wheel is and this bolster is to the bottom of the wheel over is about 11 inches. And so getting your butt around the bolster here kind of becomes a little pain. So I know what you guys are going to say, well, Andy, before you get out of the car, just slide the seat all the way back, which is fine and good. And I would agree that is a good way to give yourself more room. But then when I get back in the car, sure, I can hit the memory set button and then move it back up, or just move it manually. But when I say manually, is move it up electronically. But you sit there and it's like, where the Porsche, I just grab the thing in the center, pull it up, and zoop, I could slide up real quick. So yeah, it's a nitpicking thing, but that one is a little different. And if you take a look over at the RS real quick, again, this is the seating position I would be in the RS, and from the bottom of the wheel over to the bolster, it's about 15, 16 inches. So there's actually 5 inches of more room in that space to get in. And that seat is set up for the way I would get in the car. There's not too much difference between the shoulder support in the steering wheel between the RS and the M2, and you can kind of see the M2 through there on the other side. And this steering wheel, I don't like steering wheels extended that much. Because I have shorter legs, so I tend to not bring the steering wheel out to me like you would if you were taller, had long legs, and it's a similar thing on the M2. I really don't have that out very far. Okay, so let's jump into this really quick. So let's talk about, I'm gonna start with the driver's kind of compartment here. So seating, these seats are really comfortable. The bolstering on these seats on the side is great. I like the fact that I have a little adjustment here on the side, so I can actually get them to squeeze me a little bit tighter or looser, which I really like. And there's enough adjustment here, I could find a decent position with the seating. And the seats are comfortable, so they feel really good. So, and then the seats also have, the memory function, right? You can set your seats, your external mirrors and whatnot to the seating position. Then you could set it to a key fob, to a driver in the iDrive, blah, 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 blah. Steering position is good. Again, we have a tilt and telescoping steering wheel. It's a manual tilt and telescoping. Yeah, I know you don't want me to run into the back of the policeman in front of me, huh? So that part is good. Again, I found a good seating, steering wheel position there. Steering wheel, you've heard it from the reviewers. Everybody talks about the thickness. So of course it's in my head, the thickness. But in 180 something miles, I really haven't it's not really a problem. Is it thick? Yes. Is it thicker than the RS? Yes. Is it horrible? Absolutely not. Gas pedal is really good. The modulation on the pedal for a turbo, so far I really haven't felt any lag. That I feel like a lag's been problematic. So that part I thought's been really good. And I feel like I can modulate the throttle really well. So the clutch has a little bit of a long throw. The engagement of the clutch seems to be about halfway. You have to kind of release about halfway in the clutch before it'll engage, which isn't bad. So maybe down the road I'll do that little clutch stop thing, you know, that kind of reduces that. The brakes are great. Now this car has the ceramic brakes, but again, when I think of pedal feel, you know, some brakes can be a little touchy. You hit them and you're like jerky. These are very smooth. The pedal is a nice progression. You kind of push on it and, you know, you could hold it there and it stops very smoothly. So far the brakes are good. I haven't gotten on them real hard, guys. So, you know, you're not going to hear me, you know, like I haven't stomped on them like I'm going down the straightaway at a track into a turn. So from that standpoint, I don't have any really feedback yet, but so far those are really good. Center console. Some guys are talking about their leg hitting up against the side of the carbon fiber. Again, I haven't driven the car really far, so my leg's not resting against it, non-issue. No armrest, not an issue. Again, I haven't gone any really long drives yet, so maybe if I'm on a 3, 4, 5 hour drive, maybe that's an issue, but right now it's not an issue, and I don't know that it will be. But we'll find out, right? Once we go down the road and drive this a little bit more. Manual parking brake, yay, I love a manual parking brake. Heck, the RS even has the electronic parking brake in that, so yay for that. Shifter, I think it's fine. The auto blip feature, it's good. I know with auto blip, it's there not to upset the balance of the car, and you've heard me talk about this, but I actually do like to use the engine sometimes for braking. I imagine a lot of you guys out there, oh my God, you don't do that, you're gonna ruin the engine. My Mazda Speed 3, I had 146,000 miles on that car. I always did the downshifting and do some of the braking on the engine. I mean, I didn't jerk the car, but like here, I can't do it. If I downshift, it's gonna blip, and it's just so smooth into that lower gear. It doesn't really give me, like, whatever, it doesn't slow the car down. This car wants to boogie. So the idea of 406 pound-feet of torque, I mean, the RS only has like 346? So this thing has 60 pound-feet of torque, more torque than the RS. So this thing wants to get up and go. Right now it's saying, hey, don't go above 5,500 RPM while I break it in. So I'm trying to be a good boy. Infotainment, God, I could spend a lot of time on the iDrive, guys. Overall, I'll just say it's fairly intuitive to work. Read the manual, the owner's manual. The iDrive is really good. The only thing I'm running into a quirky issue with the iDrive with Apple CarPlay is it goes into Apple CarPlay, and then sometimes it has to wait a minute, like if you're playing the radio, satellite radio, to then come back to the radio. So that's been a little bit of an issue, which is kind of weird, and then you have to go out of CarPlay to media to get to the radio again. I'm sure this is just me not knowing how the hell to use the car, so let's just chalk that up to the idiot factor right now. The other quirkiness with Apple CarPlay is I use Waze a lot, and I suppose a lot of you guys use Waze as well. When you use Waze, and sometimes I'm like, all right, I want to turn Waze off. And the way I do it is I usually just close the app. You know, you tap your screen, you flip it up, you close the app, and the app is closed. Well, guess what? If I flip it up and close the app here, it's not closed on the iDrive. All of a sudden you're driving along and the thing starts talking to you again. So what I found out is I actually have to go in and hit stop on the Waze app, and then it'll stop. I don't know if there's piped in sound. I can't tell. I mean, I can hear the exhaust. It's not horrible. It's not great, because I like loud. I like a little bit of noise, so I can't wait until I put the exhaust on there. So stay tuned. That'll happen in a few months, guys. I'll put a video out the exhaust install and then doing the exhaust on the car. Mirrors, the way I can set mirrors are really good. Visibility all around the car, thumbs up on visibility. The hood, so we have that bulge in the hood, right? The M2, the CS has that little bulge there for the venting, and then it has the little cutouts going down. You look out your window here, I mean, you can see this little hump in your hood here. Does it affect visibility or anything? No, but it's just something you can see. It doesn't, like the RS, a Porsche 911, right? That front end really falls away. This one's a little bit different, right? The hood on this car is a little bit higher, so that's something a little bit different. Again, not horrible. This I like. This works out really well. It's a dual climate control, okay? But the thing I don't like, or I miss, I shouldn't say don't like, the thing I miss is you can't sync up. Like a lot of cars, if you have dual, there's like a sync button. So if I set mine to 70 or 80 or whatever, it changes both sides. This one here does not have a sync feature. In the gauge cluster, a couple little quirky things here, where you can cycle through the different readouts. I just think it's kind of odd. I can't see my digital speedometer and my mileage, my odometer at the same time. I think the fit and finish is done very well. The inside of it is very comfortable. The issue that I have is spending nearly $100,000 on the car. I don't know that this interior is quite up to $100,000 standard. Oh, by the way, seating in the back is awesome. Now, I'm not a big guy. I'm like 5'7", but when I go back there, I have tons of room. I gotta imagine if you're 5'10", maybe even 6 foot, it's very surprising how much room is in the back of this thing. So those of you out there that have one, M2 comp or this, you know it. So there's configurations for the suspension, the steering, and the throttle engine response. So my M1 is set to sport on throttle and engine, comfort on shocks, comfort on steering. And all that means is, so comfort on steering is the steering is going to be a little bit easier to maneuver. So it's not going to have a lot of weight to it. So it's going to make it a little bit easier to maneuver. So especially if you're in tighter settings, you're doing a lot of turning or parking, I think that's a really good one. The comfort setting and the shocks, same thing. It's going to give you a smoother ride. So if you're on a bumpy road like this, it'll be much better. And then the throttle response, sportiness, is just going to give you a little bit better throttle response, right? Then my M2 mode, I switched to M2. My M2 mode is Sport Plus on steering, so the steering will get much heavier. Sport Plus on the suspension, and I noticed this the other day when I did that when I hit bumps, it was like ka-tunk, much stiffer. And then Sport Plus, everything's set to Sport Plus, and the traction control is set to M dynamic mode. So it's not completely disabled, but it has, I'm not sure if it's traction. I'm thinking traction is disabled, but DSC is on, or maybe it's the other way around. DSC is off and traction is on. It just would allow the car to be a little bit more free to move around. So like when I'm down in the mountains and stuff, I think MDM mode may be, this M2 may be what I have. So on some of those roads, if the car moves around a little bit, that's okay. The tires. So the tires on this car are the Michelin Pilot Super Sports, which are the same tires I had on my 997 GT3, because back then Cup 2s weren't a thing. So these, I actually think these are probably the better tire for all around, just driving around. I think they're going to be a little bit more comfortable. Their sidewall's a little bit more forgiving, so it's a little softer. And also, they will channel rain better than a Cup 2. Cup 2s, a lot of people get really skittish about Cup 2s in the wet. I actually think Cup 2s are just fine in the wet. Cup 2s in puddling or on the road, that's where you run into an issue, because they can't channel water. So they will hydroplane easier. This tire, I think, is less susceptible. However, I do notice going around the turns that this tire feels like it wants to roll a little bit. It doesn't have that stiffness that the Cup has, and I think it doesn't have the stickiness over time that the Cup 2 tire has. So that's just a little feedback there, but I think overall I'm very satisfied with the Pilot Super Sports on this car for what I'm using the car for. One of the things I want to play around with is BIMR code. I think a lot of you out there, you BMW fanboys, probably know about BIMR code, right? There's an app, and then you get this OBD2 thing, you plug it in down here, and then you can adjust some of the settings, things you can't do through the iDrive. So I've watched the videos, looked at some of that. I might want to get into that a little bit. So some BIMR code stuff. The windows still need to be tinted yet. I'm going to do a ceramic tint on the windows because I'm telling you, I can really feel the heat coming through. So I definitely want to get the windows tinted. I have that to do. I've talked about the VTF adjustable ride height springs from H&R. So the H&R springs I have to do, so I want to get the thing lowered, right? And then there's also the 10mm wheel spacers, front and rear that I want to get on here. So those are some of the, I'll say within the next 60 days or so to do. And then maybe within the next 90 days, I'll get the Active Auto Works mid-pipe on, and then the Remus rear section, so I can get rid of the diaper sag in the back of the car. It is really not very sightly thing on a car like this. So those are some of the things coming up with the car. But I'll tell you, overall, at a, whatever, probably a couple hundred miles into it now, I really like this car. I mean, I can see why the reviewers gave it the kudos they did. I do want to see what it's going to be like when I really start to push the thing. How it handles, how much it moves around, how much it pushes is really what I'm interested in. So far, this M2 CS is one sweet ride.